Hi guys, welcome to part 6 of this Angular 7 tutorial series. In this video we're going to be updating the homepage component to display a list of all users in the system and allow you to delete individual users. We're also going to create a global alert component for handling alerts from throughout the application. So at the moment alerts are handled by individual components like the login component and home and register component. So that's what's going to be refactored. As usual, I've posted all the steps onto my blog, and I'll put a link to this post in the video description. Okay, so getting started. Alright, the first thing we need to do in order to support listing users and deleting users is to update our fake backend to support those routes. So within our fake backend, the handle route method, we've got a couple of extra routes checked for here. One is for users, which passes through to the get users function, which gets all users, and the other matches /users and /ID in the URL, which then passes through to the delete user function. Jumping down to those functions, we can see that get users first checks if the user's logged in, returns unauthorized if they're not, otherwise returns an OK response with all the users in the system. And the delete function, similarly, it checks if the user's logged in and returns unauthorized if they're not, and then it filters the users list to exclude the one that's been deleted, and then saves the new users updated user list in local storage there before returning an OK response. There's a few extra helper functions here, one for returning an unauthorized response, one for checking if the user's logged in, and another one for extracting the ID out of the URL that's been requested from Angular. Okay, so if we grab the new parts of our code, so first it's these two lines in the switch statement of the handle route function, and then jump over to our fake backend under helpers. And paste those in there. Don't worry about the underlines, that's just because I haven't copied over the functions themselves yet. Okay, then copy the functions and paste the route functions there next to the others. And lastly, the help functions. And paste those down there. Okay, that's it for our fake backend. It's now set up to support getting users and deleting users. Right, moving on to the next step. We'll add the logic to our home component for displaying a list of users and also binding links for deleting users. So we see the code here for our home component. In the constructor, we're getting the current user from the authentication service. That's to display a welcome message in the home component template. Then in the ng-on-init method, we're calling load all users, which fires this private function to get all users from the user service. And there's also implemented a delete user function that calls the user service to delete the selected user, and then once that's successful, it'll reload all the users. So that's to reload the list of users with the deleted one removed. Okay, so if we highlight the code there for the home component, and back in VS Code, open up the home component, and paste that there. And the next step is to add the HTML and template syntax to our home component template. So we see most of this is HTML. We've got a few bits of Angular template syntax, one for displaying the current user first name here, and another here for looping over the collection of users and displaying the user name and first name, last name, as well as a link for deleting the user that is bound to the delete user method of the home component that we just spoke about before. Okay, so if you copy that code there, and go into the home component template, paste that there, and moving on to the next step. Okay, so the next section is where we'll be refactoring our alerts within our application. So first we'll set up a global alert service and alert component, and then we'll update our login component and register component to use that alert service instead of, at the moment, what they're doing is handling their own alerts. If you see in our login template, we've got a couple of divs for our error and success messages, so those will be removed and all alerts will be going through the alert service instead. Okay, jumping right in. So first let's create a file for our alert service in the services folder. Alert.service.ts, and then going over the code here. So in the constructor, the alert service subscribes to router change events, so it can clear alerts automatically on route change. This is with the exception of when the keep after route change parameter is set to true, in which case it's reset to false. So on the following route change, the alert will be cleared. So it has the effect of displaying an alert after a single route change. Here we have our methods. The first is the getAlert method. This is used by other components in the application to subscribe to when alerts are published. This will be used by the alert component that displays our global alerts. And the following three methods are for publishing alert messages and clearing them. So one for displaying success alerts, one for displaying error alerts, and the last one for clearing alerts by sending through an undefined or parameterless alert there. Okay, so if we copy that code there for the alert service and paste there. And the next step is we'll add the alert service to our services barrel file, so the alert service will be able to be imported using just the folder path to the services path like that. Okay, so the services index.ts, and paste the exported alert service there. Next we'll create the alert component and template, so the component that will actually be displaying the alerts in the UI. First, this is our first shared component, so we'll create a folder for shared components in our project named _components. Oh, looks like I've already got it there from when I was testing, so that's the folder that you want to create, _components. And next we'll create an alert component. So I'm copying that name and creating alert.component.ts in the components folder. Okay, going through the code here, we've got a message property which is used by the alert component template for displaying the message, and a subscription which subscribes to the alert service getAlerts method, the observable that's returned from that for to be notified when alerts are published in the system. The alert service in the constructor gets injected by Angular's dependency injection system, and in the init method here is where we subscribe to the alert service, and when an alert is published there's a switch statement that checks the type of alert. if it's a success, it sets a CSS class property on the message of alert success, which is defined by Bootstrap to display a green success message. Otherwise, if it's an error, it sets these classes, which display as a red alert message. Finally, it sets the message property of the alert component to the message that's been published, and that makes it available to the alert component template that we'll create in the next step. Finally, down here we've got an ng onDestroy method, which is called before the component is destroyed, and in there we unsubscribe from the subscription to ensure there aren't any memory leaks from having orphan subscriptions in our Angular app. Okay, so copy the code there, and back in VS Code, paste that there, and save. Next step, we'll create the template for our alert component. So it's going to go into a file called alert.component.html. So in the components folder, a new file called alert.component.html. And there's not much to the alert component. It's a single div that displays, it renders when there is a message to display. It sets the CSS class to the CSS class property of the message, which we define up here. And it displays the message text inside the alert div. So copying that and paste that there. Next step is we'll create a barrel file in our shared components folder, so components will be able to be imported directly from the folder path rather than having to use the full component path. So copying the file name and create index.ts, and then add the export of our alert component to the barrel file. Okay, in order to use our alert component within other components of our app, we need to add it to the declarations array of our app module. So we need to add a couple of lines here. First, importing the alert component. So opening up app.module.ts and importing the alert component there, and then adding it to the declarations. And now we'll be able to use the alert component in other components of our application, which we're about to do right now. So next we'll add the alert component to our app component template in order to display messages, alert messages that are sent from anywhere in the application. So it's just this one tag here that we'll add to the app component.html. So add it just above the router outlet, so it'll be displayed everywhere because the app component is the container for the entire application. Okay, next we'll refactor the login component to use the alert service instead of displaying its own alerts, which it does at the moment. Now there's a few bits of code being added and removed to the alert component in order to get to the final result here. So I've listed out the exact steps. I thought the clearest way would probably be just I'll follow through these steps and end up with what we've got down here. So if you open the login component TS in VS Code, and then we'll add the alert service to our service imports. So this is making use of the services barrel file to import multiple services in one import statement. And we'll remove the local error and success string properties as they're no longer needed since we're using the centralized service. So deleting those lines there. Next, we'll add the alert service parameter to our constructor, so it gets injected by Angular. That there. Next, we'll remove the logic for displaying the registration successful alert, because that will be handled by the register component from now on. So you can delete those lines. Next, to reset alerts now, we'll call this.alertService.clear rather than resetting the local properties which we had before. So update those two lines there. Just have alert service clear. And finally, to display an error, we'll call this.alertService.error instead of setting the local property, which is how it was working before. So that's on that line. Okay, save our logging component, and that's all done for the logging component. Moving on, from the update to the logging component template is tiny. We're just removing the couple of alert divs from the top of the file as they're no longer needed. So just delete the top two lines, save, and moving on to the next step. Alright, refactoring the register component. Now this is pretty similar to what we did for the alert components, for the login components. Go through the same steps again. So the register component, add the alert service to our service imports, remove the error string property from there, add the alert service to the constructor parameters, we'll add a reset alerts on submit call to the onSubmit method. This wasn't in here previously, but we'll add it in so it clears any alerts when the form is submitted. I'll just paste that comment there and then call this the alert service. We'll call alert service.success with registration successful when registration is successful. I'll copy that. So this is the success callback here, so we'll call this dot alert service.success. We'll pass the message registration successful. And we'll set the second parameter to true. So this message will be displayed after this navigation to the login page. So this effectively, the registration successful message will be displayed on the login page after the redirect. Okay, next we'll set this.alertService.error to be used instead of this.error equals error in the error callback. Okay, that's it for the register component. Next step is to remove the alert HTML from the register component template. So again, a tiny change, just deleting the first line. Save. And alright, I think we're ready to start the Angular app. So going to your terminal window, in the projects Angular 7 tutorial folder, run the npm start command. Okay, the app's up and running. We register new user. Enter. Okay, first test is already taken because of the previous tests I've done in the other videos. Also, this shows that the centralized alerts are working, so this alert message is coming from our new alert component. If I change that to test2 and register, and if I log in with test2 and test123, okay, we can see on our home page now we've got our hi test message with our updated code using the current user from the auth service, and also it's displaying a list of all the users in the system. And if I click delete to delete a user, you see that that user is deleted. Okay, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below the video. Cheers.